friend, I'm Kate, and today I'm going to teach you how to create a back and forth digital pantograph design on the prostitcher software. Now, this is probably one of my favorite quilting hacks because it means that I have to spend less time breaking thread, picking up new thread, moving my machine back to the start of a row, and I can spend more time away from my machine as it quilts all by itself. So normally when you quilt a digital pantograph, your machine starts on the left-hand side, works its way across, and then at the end of that row, you have to come in and cut your thread, break your thread, move the machine back to the left-hand side, pick up your thread again, and then hit start so that it can proceed on to the next row. What I like to do is set up my rows in threes. So I will have the first row go left to right, then I'll have the second row work right to left, and then I'll have the third row go left to right again. What that means is that the machine will move itself all the way across, down a little bit, back, down a little bit, and all the way across for that final path. Now, there are definitely a few hiccups that can happen if you don't get everything set up right. So some things you want to be aware of before you go ahead and use this method are, number one, you want to make sure that your machine is okay stitching right to left. Some long arm machines prefer only to stitch from the left to right motion, and that's totally fine. But in order to use this method, your machine also needs to be able to reliably quilt from right to left. Second, you need to be aware of how big your actual quilting space is. Because we're going to set up our pantograph in rows that are sets of three essentially, so 3 pantographs tall, we need to make sure that we'll be able to fit all 3 of those rows in one quilting pass. So just double check your actual quilting space so that you know what you're working with. And 3, if you're using this method so that you can walk away from your long arm for longer amounts of time like I do, you want to make sure that you can trust your long arm. I wouldn't recommend using this method if you just got a computerized quilting machine, but if you've been using it for some time and feel comfortable with it and know how your machine works best and what to listen for when it might not be doing what it should be doing, then you'll definitely be able to use this method to get you away from the machine for longer amounts of time. But I'm going to walk you through how I set it up and how I'm specifically setting it up for this quilt, and I'll show you how it quilts out. So come along with me. Okay, so here we are in prostitcher, and I've already marked out the area that I can quilt in one pass. These 2 sides here are a little bit wider than my quilt, and then these top lines here, this line up here is about 3 inches away from where the back of my machine can possibly go, the furthest back it can, and this line here is about an inch up from the furthest forward my machine can go. So the reason that I've marked that off now is that now I know where my machine can quilt within one pass. So as long as my 3 rows that I set up fit within this pass, then I'm golden. My first step here is I'm going to come to File, Design, and I'm going to open the design that I want to use. I've already selected this design, but you can use any one that you would like. My next step is I'm going to come to Repeat, Horizontal, and I'm going to repeat this many, many times. In fact, I'm going to repeat it way too many times for the quilt top, but you'll see why that's really helpful in a moment. Then, after I've got all of these repeats together, one more for good measure because 17 is my lucky number, we're going to baseline all of those together. Now we're going to come to Modify, Align, and we're going to center them and align them vertically to the top of our area. We'll do some fine adjusting later, but for right now, this is perfect. Let me get centered back on everything again. We still have this one row selected, and because we've baselined it, prostitcher now thinks that this whole repeat is one unit. It's no longer looking at it as multiple units. So if we go to repeat, you can see I now only have one repeat. If I were to repeat it twice, it would add a whole 17 more. I don't need that. But that's actually going to be really helpful for us. So now I'm going to go ahead. Normally, this is where you would use your repeat here to get vertically. I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do instead let me undo that, is come to edit, and I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to make sure I'm on select. And I'm going to move it roughly into the area that I want it to be in. About like that. Then I'm going to duplicate it again. This third row, I want to align perfectly with that first row. Because I aligned that first row with the center of my area, I can easily do that by doing Modify, Align, Horizontal Center. Now I just need to move it up until it's about the same. And just to double check, I'm going to realign it to the center again. Now, from a distance, this looks great, but obviously we need to zoom in a little bit to make sure that all of this spacing and alignment is as good as we can get it. So I've zoomed in. I'm going to select my second row. Now I can tell I want, maybe let me zoom in even a little more. There we go. I want the center point of this circle to line up with the center point of this circle. Right now this one looks a little too far left. So I'm going to go to reposition under the Modify tab, and I'm going to nudge it over. I could even turn on my grids. Oh, look at that. This is super helpful. You can see right here that this point is just barely to the right of that 13-inch mark. So I've made my center point here just barely to the right of the 13-inch mark. Now, this spacing looks pretty good to me. I'd call it, move it up just a little bit so that I can easily count 1, 2.5 squares between my lines. Now, if I come down just a little bit, I already know, go back to my selection tool. I already know that this third row is perfectly aligned with the first row. So now all I need to do is nudge it up until it's 2.5 squares away from this one, so that this spacing is the same as this spacing. I'm going to go up even one more notch. Let me turn off my grid. And now you can see we have 3 rows. I'll zoom in a little more for you. We have 3 rows set up that are all evenly spaced and well aligned. This next step is the key. I'm going to select my middle row, and I'm going to swap my start and my stop points, so that instead of starting on the left and going to the right, it's going to start on the right and go to the left. After I've swapped those points, you have to baseline. Now, if I deselect everything, turn on my multi-select, and select the first row, then the second row, then the third row, I'm going to zoom in on the endpoints here. You can see it's starting over on the left, and then it's going to jump to start on the second row, work its way back, jump to get to the third row, and work its way back here. So you can see I have 1 start point and 1 stop point. That means I've got this set up correctly, and I should go ahead and baseline. Now we have our unit that we're working with that goes 1, 2, 3. This is perfect. I could probably squeeze in a 4th row here, but I'm not too worried about it. Getting it to do these 3 passes at a time is perfectly fine by me. So now that we have this set up, we need to change our area. I need to make my area 74 inches long so that it's a little bit longer than the quilt top. Now I'm going to go to repeat, and I'm going to start vertically repeating. Now 2 things. I can see right here, I want these orange peel circles to sort of alternate, and they don't right now. So I'm going to come to wrap, and I'm going to go to horizontal, and I'm going to shift that first row until it lines up. I'm going to zoom in a little more so that I can perfect that. So let's see. So this row is staying in place. This row is the one that's moving. I turn on my grid. Maybe I zoom in on this gap right here. See, just a little bit to the left of the 51 inch, just a little bit to the left of the 51 inch. Honestly, that looks fantastic to me. Now I'm going to come back to my home. You can see over here where we've got that empty space. That's why we made our rows so huge, so that even as they're shifting a little bit to the right each time, that empty space, when we go and crop this area, is going to get cut off. The last thing that I want to check is that my spacing between the rows is even here and here. I think these need to come up a little bit. So if I zoom in on these 3 rows, I know that these 2 are part of my initial pass. This one right here is where I can start to nudge it. So in order to change that, I'm going to come back to basic, vertical, and I'm going to decrease my gap because remember I want 2.5 squares between my lines. I think that's perfect. I've got 2.5 squares. If I zoom in even more, you can see 2.5. So now I need one more repeat, and I've completely filled in my area. I'm going to go ahead and baseline all of that together. I'm going to select this, and I'm going to nudge the whole thing with modify reposition up just a bit so that at that top part, I make sure I have all of my quilting filled in up here. I don't want any gaps on that top line. I know it looks crazy right now, but it's about to get a lot simpler. I'm going to come to modify, crop. I'm going to crop my outside, and I'm going to close my edges. Now I have my whole quilting ready to go. It's going to start and do 3 lines, and then it's going to ask me to jump. And every time it asks me to jump, I'll be able to advance the quilt top. Okay, so now I have this set up. I'm going to go ahead and get quilting. So I'm just going to, like I normally would, go to prostitcher, quilt, and I'm going to select run. It's going to move to that starting point and help me pull up my thread. And then we can just let it quilt. Okay, so I have that first pass finished, which is awesome. I should say first pass, but it really is 3 rows done already. Now I'm gonna go ahead and advance the quilt, and then I'm just gonna keep going until the quilt top is finished. So I will check in with you after the quilt is finished and give you an overall look at how it quilted out, but so far, it looks really good. If you're enjoying these videos and want to subscribe, you can hit that button right down below. It would really help me out because I have a goal to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and every subscriber helps. So thanks for joining me on this one, and I will see you in the next one. Happy quilting!